All right, welcome into Barbecue for Newbies. I'm your host, Kurt Mueller, joined today by the Pitmaster of Sweet Dixie Q, Mr. Derek Johnson. Derek, thanks for joining us. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So Derek actually comes to us out of Baxley, Georgia, and relatively new to the competitive barbecue scene. Isn't that right?
Yep. This is my second year.
So in his second year now, now let's talk about your journey a little bit into competitive barbecue. I know, well, let's go way back. Let's go way back.
Right.
So if I remember correctly, I believe you got the passion, you got the fire for barbecue from your dad, right?
Yep. And it was, we used to always, on Sunday, we would get home from church and and we would get ready to watch the race, and we'd grill steaks or grill, sausage. And it was just always, kind of me and him hanging around the grill and, testing the food before anybody else could right off the grill, and just kind of started from there, I guess. And then it's morphed into this crazy life we call barbecue.
That's right. It is crazy. It's right. It's it's an obsession. It's a hobby. It's a passion, whatever you want to call it. And, as Derek talked about, he's only in his second year competing. Now, Derek, did you do any backyard or did you go right to pro?
I did one backyard.
Okay.
And it was 2020, November 2020, at the Cummins, Georgia contest. It was the last contest on the GBC schedule for 2020. And I went and I borrowed a smoker. I had a little bitty Traeger that the local Ace Hardware had gave me, because we do a lot of business with them. And I took that. I borrowed. It was a Bubba's grill, reverse flow smoker. I took it up to Cummins and I RGC'd, and then it was
on.
It was on.
I love it. So for our listeners that are thinking about getting into this, Derek's a great example of just, he had a passion for it from when he was a kid, learning with his father. He did one backyard, he got hooked, and he said, you know what, I'm going to pro. And you've already got a GC under your belt in the pro division, right?
Yeah, I got one GC and one RGC. And then I competed last weekend. I got a fourth place finish there. But and all that's happened in 2021. 2022.
Right.
2021 was, definitely a learning experience. And I cooked. If I wasn't cooking at a competition, I was cooking at home and just steady cooking. Try to get it down. I just kind of got obsessed and still am, really. But I got a RGC, Sip Swine, and then my next KCBS cook I GC'd.
That's right. I remember seeing that on Facebook. And so, we're talking about a guy, for our listeners, that, followed his passion, and he's been on a whirlwind journey. I mean, not even 2 full years in, he's got a GC, he's got a reserve grand under his belt. And on top of all that, he's even setting up his own competition right there in Baxley, Georgia. Let's camp out on that for a second. Now, what are those dates again in September?
It's September 16th and 17th. It's right here in Baxley. It's the KCBS sanctioned event, and also it'll be on the GBC points. We're doing a one meat rib cook on Friday night, and then the regular full blown master series on Saturday.
And that's, you know what, talk about jumping in. Let's take a step back here for a second. You know, for our listeners, again, you know, to go from backyard to pro is a pretty good jump. Actually, let's take another step back. To go from cooking at home to competing is a jump. When you go from backyard to pro, that's another jump. But it just wasn't enough for Derek here. He said, you know what, I want to organize a contest too. So if you're listening to the show and you're saying to yourself, I don't have any competitions around me, well, here you go. Follow in Derek's footsteps and organize one. Now, I'm sure it's a lot of work, but let's talk about this. It's called Smoketoberfest, right?
No, Smoketimberfest.
Smoketimberfest. Excuse, that's right, because that would be October. Smoketimberfest. So how did this all come about for Smoketimberfest? What was your driving force behind that?
Well, really and truly, you know, I wanted to get a contest, you know, more contests in South Georgia, because I had to go to Atlanta to compete almost every weekend. And I wanted to get one down here, and really and truly the county, Appling County and Baxley, the Chamber of Commerce, they reached out to me before I even reached out to them. So, you know, I got to give them props on that, because they came to me and was like, hey, we see all this barbecue contest you've been posting on Facebook. We want to put one on in Baxley. And I was like, man, you say you want it, let's get it. So,
let's do it.
Let's do it. I actually, I had to Waynesboro. I had the
Boss Hog.
Boss Hog. I had to shadow that contest to be able to be the organizer for this one. And you know, a lot of people's like, man, why don't you get somebody else to organize it? You know, so that you can compete. And you know, at first I didn't know I was going to be in the driver's seat, I guess, for the GBC points this early in the game. But you know, I was like, I know that I'm gonna give it my all. I want it to work in Baxley, so you know, and I want it to be a great contest. And you know, a couple years down the road, if I can get somebody else to fill my spot as the organizer, then I'll cook it. But until then, I'm gonna, you know, do everything I can to make sure that it's top-notch contest.
So this is something then, I mean, you want this to take root, and you want this to be an annual thing.
Oh yeah.
Now, let's talk about cooking. Let's talk about the fun stuff. What's your favorite, regardless, forget about competition. I'm just talking about in general now. What's your favorite meat to cook?
I mean, I really enjoy cooking ribs. But if I had to say something that I cook more than anything, it'd have to be burgers. You know, and there's a inside joke everybody always talks about, because I eat a bunch of burgers, and I can down some burgers. And so we always call it we get together on Friday night and we take the brisket trimmings and stuff and grind them up and make burgers. And the last time at Boss Hog, I downed 5 of them. And everybody is amazed at that, but I could have kept going. So.
So that's your thing, burgers. All right. So burgers are your thing. We're going to come back to that, because I want to pick your brain on a good at-home recipe for some burgers for our listeners. Now let's talk about competition wise. When you're competing, what's your favorite meat to cook?
Definitely ribs.
Ribs.
I mean, I enjoy it just because to me, it's one of the most challenging, because they can go from good to bad real quick. And man, there's nothing like biting into a good rib, you know.
That's exactly right.
I definitely have to say ribs.
Now, paint us a picture just for our listeners. So you're cooking on drums, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the drums. Now, is that how did you learn to cook on drums, or is that just something you adopted?
Well, when I done that contest in Cummins, the backyard contest, I was cooking on that reverse flow, and I was parked right beside Brian Jarvis at the Atlanta Barbecue store, and we kind of talked back and forth. He kind of gave me some pointers and stuff, and helped me out, and me and him talked after the contest, on text messages and stuff like that. And he was like, man, you need to get you some drums. And I mean, at that point, I was like, all right, I don't care. If I need it, I'm getting it. And so I bought two, and then a little while later, I bought two more. So I cook on 4 drums, and there ain't nothing like the flavor off of a drum.
Now, are you cooking with lump charcoal, or are you using briquettes? What are you using?
I use lump. I use the meathead charcoal. It's right here in Georgia. And I use lump, and I use pecan chunks.
Okay, so there it is. So pecan. You know what I found that's interesting is, you can talk to 10 different pitmasters, and you are probably going to get 10 different answers as to what kind of, charcoal they're using and what kind of smoking wood they're using, and it's all good barbecue, all of it, and that's what I think. And maybe you've seen this. I don't know if you have any, young guys. What I mean by young is young on the competition circuit, not necessarily young in age, but I don't know if you've had any young guys reaching out to you, just picking your brain with the early success you've had. But it's funny because I love pecan. I'm like you. I love cherry too. And peachwood. I love peachwood. The only one I haven't figured out how to cook up with is mesquite. Every time I use mesquite, I almost ruin the meat.
It's definitely a strong flavor, and that's what I like about pecan is it's hard to get an over smoke with pecan. You can, and I mean sometimes I'll throw a little chunk of hickory in there, but I do like the mix of pecan and hickory. But this year I pretty much stuck with pecan because my goal going into this year was to simplify my process, simplify what I do. That way I can do it consistently every single time. And I mean, I get a little crazy, I go and I'll pour out the bag of chunks and I pick out, the perfect sizes. You'll hear me in there with a hammer breaking them in half and stuff. And I'm definitely the noisy neighbor at the contest, So I'm beating on my drums. I'm a contractor, and at Calhoun, my lid wouldn't close on my drum, and I was out there with a hammer, and it closes good now. So.
It closes. That's right. So now, what about the drum style of cooking do you like? Is it the hot and fast, or what about it have you found that you really like about it?
I like the hot and fast. I like the fat dripping on the coals, and I like the constant moving parts. I mean, I'm running around like a madman the whole time, and I'd mess something up if I wasn't, and so I do like the fast pace. I mean, if you ain't I always say you ain't cooking if you're looking. Well, on the drum, if you ain't looking, you burning something up.
You burning meat. That's right. Yeah. That's exactly right. So it almost seems like, I've noticed again, and you know, I'm actually more of a newbie at this than you are. You know, I started officially in September last year, but I noticed I'd never even heard of a drum until I started in September. And the more I started to pay attention, the more I see more and more drums getting used. Here's my question. I know some of that has to do with, you know, if you see a team that's doing really well, sometimes people will say, well, I need to go cook on what they're cooking.
Yeah.
I know that has something to do with it. But what in your mind, just in your opinion, what is it about the drums that are so popular right now?
Man, I really think it's the flavor. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a flavor it gives you that back home, backyard, you know, cooking on like a Weber kettle
Yep.
type flavor, you know, that when a judge bites into it, they say, man, this reminds me of cooking at home. And you can ever get them to thinking like that, then, you know, they're going to score good. You know, you don't necessarily want to just wow them out the park with some crazy flavor. You just want them to say, you know, that's something that I would enjoy eating at the house.
That's right. Yeah. And you don't want them to think too much either. You know, that's what I've heard is if the judges are thinking too much, that's probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, you want them just to take a bite and say, okay, and go on to scoring it. So you're a solo cooker, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're managing 4 different fires. You've got a lot going on. How do you keep it all straight? Do you, you know, I know some folks, you know, like I've got laminated sheets with timelines. Are you a timeline guy? Or are you more of a, hey, let's just wing it?
I got a starting timeline.
Yeah.
But if like somebody always asks me, how long does it take to cook ribs? Until they're tender. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know. I start them at a certain time, and once I get the color I want, I wrap. I don't know internal temperatures. I ain't got a clue. I go by feel and I go by color. And one thing I like about the drums is if I pull a meat out of the cambro, and it's too tight, I got a drum sitting out there that's roaring at like 400.
Yep.
I can get it tender.
Oh yeah, easy.
I can get it tender. Yep. I can fix anything I need to fix on that drum.
Right. Now, you're a younger guy. You've got young kids, right? I think so, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I got 2 twin girls.
Okay.
That's 3. And I got a 10-year-old little boy.
All right. So you got your hands full. So here's where I'm going with this, because I get asked this question a lot. I've got 2 boys, you know, married. If I had it my way, I'd probably be cooking every weekend somewhere. But, you know, I'm not retired yet, so we'll have to wait for that. How do you balance all this? How do you balance, you know, making a living, providing for your family, being a husband, being a father? How do you balance it all?
Man, that's a hard one.
It is.
It definitely is. And, you know, my first year, I cooked a lot of contests, a lot more than I did that. Going into this year, you know, I said, I mean, I ain't cooking as many this year. And that was before gas was out the roof and everything else. But I just, you know, my little boy comes sometimes and he does kids Q sometimes. He done the one at the Fire Ant Festival. That was my first GBA I done. He done the burgers at Friday night. He got second. So he was all happy about that.
He was.
Like I said, we know burgers. We know burgers around my house. Anyways, he comes and my little girls, you know, they way too young to come, and it's hard to balance it all. You just you gotta turn it off sometimes. And my wife listens to this, she's gonna say, "Well, when you gonna do that?" But I try to turn it off, but it's definitely an obsession that, if you ain't real careful, it'll take over everything.
That's exactly right. Everything in moderation. It's just like anything else, just like fishing or hunting or any other hobby. It's a pretty big rabbit hole you can go down, and I'm just scraping the surface myself on that. So, all right, now let's go back to burgers. I know you're a burger guy. We got that figured out.
Yep.
So you're cooking at the house. What's your go-to burger recipe at the house?
Man, it's gotta be, just the all-American burger, but it's hard to beat a smash burger.
That's right.
A smash burger is definitely the way to go. To me, if you're gonna take the time to cook burgers, make sure you go through and pick out the buns just like you would trying to pick out a steak. You go through all them buns, you find the right buns, and then butter them things up, toast them, and to me that's what makes a burger. You got a toasted bun and a smash burger with that crust on it.
Yep.
And that's good eating.
Now, are you cooking those smash burgers on a drum at the house, like in a cast iron?
No, I usually cook them on the Traeger. I'll put a cast iron skillet in the Traeger, and I'll smash them on that, or I've been wanting to get me another like a Blackstone or one of those. I think Loco just come out with some griddles that looks pretty good. But I usually just I got a cast iron skillet. I'll throw in the Traeger and I'll crank it up to as high as it'll go and burn them down.
Burn them down. I love it. Now, what kind of rubs, what kind of spices are you putting on those burgers at the house? Can you share that, or is that a family secret?
Oh yeah, you can't go wrong to me on beef. You can't go wrong with Blues Hog, Bold and Beefy. That's some good stuff. Boar's Night Out, White Lightning.
Yep.
And I'd say I kind of go back and forth, but one of my mainstays in beef is heavy smoked Black Label, and that stuff's good. Good on steak too. I got some calls and some steak competitions with that combo right there.
So there you go. So it's Blues Hog, Bold and Beefy, which I love. Boar's Night Out, White Lightning, another good one, and heavy smoked Black Label. I'm not familiar with that one. I'm gonna have to order that one.
Oh yeah, get you some of that. I'm telling you, that's some good stuff.
And is it pretty much even on all three of those? Are you light? Are you medium on one of them, or is it just pretty much even on all three?
I like to take them. I'll take a shaker and get like a tablespoon of each, and kind of mix them up, and then sprinkle it all on just like that. That way, it's not too heavy, too salty.
Yeah.
I like to mix them all up in a shaker.
Yeah, because one thing I found, you got to be careful with that Blues Hog, Bold and Beefy. It's got a lot of salt in it.
Yeah.
If you're not careful with it, you're going to oversalt it for sure. So, and again, for our listeners, we're chatting with the pitmaster of Sweet Dixie BBQ, Mr. Derek Johnson. He comes to us out of Baxley, Georgia. Find him on Facebook. He's on Facebook. You're on Instagram too, correct? Maybe.
I think I made an Instagram, but I'm still trying to figure Instagram out.
All right. Well, for now, look him up on Facebook, like his page, and also to remember, Smoketoberfest. That's going to be September 16th and 17th in Baxley, Georgia. We're going to have all the registration details for our listeners in the show notes, so you can click on that. if you don't want to compete, at least come up and say hi. If you want to compete, come on. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
I know it's on my calendar. I'm looking forward to it. And Derek, as we wind down the show, any parting words of wisdom that you can share with our listeners about getting into competition barbecue?
You know, I still consider myself a newbie. I'm like I said, just 2 years in. I've, you know, kind of took the bull by the horns, I guess you could say. You know, I'm also on the GBC board, but what I'd say is, you know, don't sit there and look at all the different trailers there and try to get intimidated and this, that, and other. You know, what you got to do is you just got to really focus on your cook. The only person you cooking against is you. The only person that can mess my cook up is me. And as long as you are focused in on that cook and you can, you know, not make mistakes, then, you know, and practice, man. Everybody, you know, you can't just watch a video. You gotta do it. You gotta practice. I mean, I cooked, and I'm gonna cook this weekend right there at the house. I'm gonna cook, you know, next weekend. You know, you just gotta practice and focus on getting your process down to where you can do it consistently every single weekend. And then the only battle you got is, you know, with yourself, or the man in the mirror, I guess that song. But yeah, just, you know, get your process down, and, you know, something that you can consistently do every single time, and do it without even thinking about it.
I love it. That's a great way to end the show. Powerful stuff. Derek, thanks for coming on the show, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man.